Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Greetings, Earthling, and welcome back to Attack of the 70-Foot Podcast. I am your host with the most ghost toast, the dyspeptic Calvin McCarthy, and of course with me I always have my comrades, my compatriots, Mr. Chris, I can never pronounce your last name correctly, Jaywardna,
Close.
and welcoming back Mr. Zackety Zach Attack. Welcome back, Zach.
Good to be back.
Good.
Very good to be back.
You missed a whole episode. You missed all of episode 2.
Honestly, if I was on the episode, it would have been like I wasn't on the episode because I know so little about Godzilla.
I've even got my Godzilla coffee mug right now.
Yeah, the listeners at home can't see, but yes, Calvin's got a pretty badass Godzilla mug on his webcam right now.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Well, this should be a pretty quick little episode here. Originally, we had planned an episode of, here's a spoiler for episodes to come, movies that Bob has ruined, which is, God, I can't even remember his name, the little kid from House by the Cemetery. He's also in Manhattan Baby and a number of other Italian films. Do you guys know his name? I guess
I always
His
forget
Italian
his name.
name, I do not.
Yeah.
I always call him Bob.
Yeah,
Right.
he's Bob. He's just
I just
Bob.
know him as the kid with the slingshot in New Barbarians is how I remember him.
Right. Yeah. That was the third movie we were gonna do.
I watched all of those, so you guys want to do it, I'm good.
I
wow.
know, I am too. But Chris had a great idea to do a little Halloween spooktacular and talk about kind of traditional movies that we like to watch for Halloween. Because Chris is right when he had this idea that like everybody really has their own go-to movies. You know, people have such differing like opinions on what is a Halloween feeling movie. I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know if the general population feels that way about seasons, but I definitely do. You know, a certain season
certainly.
rolls around. Yeah. I do that with movies and music.
Yeah, movies, music, video games, comics, even sometimes. You know, like there'll be times where it's like, oh, well, you know, I've got some Evil Dead comics or some like, you know, there's a couple Silent Hill comics that I've got that I like to dig out at this time of year. You know, and like, yeah, exactly. That was what I was thinking. It's like there's sort of like the ritual. There's like a tradition, like. You know, obviously there's Die Hard for Christmas. My dad and I like to watch Strange Days around New Year's Eve. I used to watch Boondock Saints every year for St. Patty's Day. And,
yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, like there's just kind of those things. And like, there's a cool idea of like, you know, when it gets getting a little autumnal, the colors are changing. And then like you start to get to feel like, all right, it's time to bust out a Craven picture. It's time to bust out a Carpenter picture. And I noticed that everybody's got their like, sort of like their thing. And that's what I've had to learn about as I've talked to more people about horror movies in the last couple of years. Is just that like it's very individual. I mean, even Quinn, who is not going to be on this podcast with us today, but I remember even he had a comment that like I won't say the name just in case it ends up on somebody else's list, but it was like he said like, we're just going to pick this one, right? And I knew right away, like, no, that's not my choice. So it is
right.
Very,
yeah, same. Yeah.
And so it's very individual.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what kind of music do you guys listen to around this time of year?
I have been getting back to my heavy metal binge. Part of that is because last month my best bro Phil, who will also be referenced later in regards to my choice, but he as a birthday gift to me, he dragged me off to a Iron Maiden concert, so at the Moda Center. So that was pretty fucking rad. So yeah, a lot of like
That's right.
so it's pretty good to like just kind of get back into heavy metal and the kind of darker side of stuff. I have a tendency also to like bust out the ghastly ones at this time of year, which I posted about on my personal Facebook, and then a lot of Rob Zombie, White Zombie, the Misfits, especially the Danzig era Misfits, and Famous Monsters as well. Yeah, it's typically, and then for like synth stuff, there's like Dance with the Dead and Perturbator and some of the stuff like that. That's a little darker. There's some of those that are really good and dark and edgy too.
I don't necessarily think I listen to any seasonal music.
Really?
Pretty much year round. I like death metal, which fits. So I've been listening to this band called Posthumous Blasphemer, which is just technical death metal. It's pretty good. Roll around on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I without fail, once summer is over, and it's totally subconsciously. I know that it's like really cliched, but all of a sudden I start listening to all the goth music I used to listen to in high school, like really typical kind of goth music too. A lot of The Cure, a lot of Smiths, Psychedelic Furs, that kind of stuff.
Bauhaus.
It's like without fail, man. The leaves change, and it's just like very melancholy feeling, and the days are shorter and the nights are longer or whatever, So it's got that kind of depressing feel to it. Without fail.
I don't get that because I live in California.
That's right. Yeah. You have a couple less seasons than up here.
That's why you don't listen to seasonal music, because it's just sun. It's just Beach Boys constantly.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, and Beach Boys solo work.
Yeah.
Up on Dennis Wilson's solo album once in a while. Pretty underrated.
Any new movies that you guys have seen recently?
So I was really excited to talk about this. I hope it's okay if I jump in right away, because so I bought this DVD from Everyday Music on Cedar Hills Boulevard before it closed. So this was like 4 years ago, I think I picked this up. And I've had it on my shelf, and I finally decided, fuck it, I want to watch this. And it's a film called We're Going to Eat You. And it's directed by Sui Hark, who was John Woo's producer during the 80s and actually did a couple of kind of horror-ish kung fu movies in the late 70s, early 80s, like The Butterfly Murders, which I have not been able to find a good print of or a good copy of. But anyway, so We're Going to Eat You is a horror comedy wuxia film about an island that's it looks like this island is ruled by it looks like a soldier or like a captain from either the original Chinese army or the post the Cultural Revolution army, and he has turned the populace of this town into a bunch of cannibals. So anytime someone comes to the island, they get captured, hacked up, and fed to the people. And it is wacky. I've only I started watching. I'm only 30 minutes all the through it. And I was starting to doze off, so I had to stop. But oh my God, I need to finish this, and I need to tell people there is a kung fu cannibal movie that exists. This needs to be seen.
Wow. Yeah, it looks interesting. I've got it pulled up on my phone here right now. Yeah, God, and now I can't remember. There's another movie that's sort of like that. I think it was like a Shaw Brothers co-production where it's I think it's like a yacht or whatever that gets shipwrecked on an island, and there's zombies and zombie beasts, and God, I'll find that. I can't remember the name of it right now, but there's another one that's kind of like that too.
Oh man, okay, whatever that is, that also sounds good. And
yeah,
love some Shaw Brothers.
Yeah, have you guys seen Three from Hell? Have you guys seen the new? I finally saw it last night.
Meaning to see it. Yeah, I love a lot of Rob Zombie stuff. It kind of the love comes and goes, but
for sure.
So what did you think? How did he handle coming back after 31 and Halloween, coming back to the rejects?
It's tonally very different, but it made me realize how tonally different House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects sort of are from each other,
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Those two are probably closer in tone than this one. You can tell he was just kind of having fun with this. It's it doesn't feel like a horror movie. And I know that Devil's Rejects kind of got away from that. I mean, I guess the best way to put it is, you know, you think of House of a Thousand Corpses being a, you know, grindhouse film, but kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre grindhouse film. And Devil's Rejects was very much like a rape revenge grindhouse film. And this definitely felt more like a kind of Tarantino sort of more action adventure kind of comedy feel to it. It was interesting. It was different. I think that's why people really didn't like it, or he just didn't, you know, once it was finished, he didn't seem to have quite the same backing that he had with the other two, you know.
Yeah.
It was different.
I was just going to quickly say that, yeah, I find that since his Halloween remake, Rob has had a lot of difficulty, I think, with kind of connecting with audiences. And I've listened to recent interviews with like Mick Garrison on, you know, where he talks about this stuff, where it's kind of like he gets kind of pigeonholed, you know, in some respects. And I think even us fans want to, but the catch is that, you know, he's very fiercely independent to himself. And it's a plus and a minus, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm curious to see it, because I really like 31.
It was different. It did not a bad difference by any means. I mean, I had fun with it. It just came out on Blu-ray, and that's how I saw it. Alex Onda. I don't know. Have you worked with Alex Onda, Chris? He works here in town. But yeah, he got it. He finally got it in the mail, and he's like, "You want to watch this together?" So he came over and we watched it, and yeah, it was good. It's definitely different. You know, I've seen a lot of people kind of dog on it for being so different, especially like a lot of the other horror podcasts that I've seen. But yeah, just like you were saying, I think that, I don't know, Rob Zombie definitely doesn't just lather, rinse, repeat anyway. So I don't know what people were expecting from him. Some of the CG wasn't the best, because there's some CG blood, but with stuff like that, I can sort of excuse it. Yeah. And
as of, you know, we do these kind of movies, I mean, think about it. Like, for you as a director, if you had the chance, you know, the opportunity to be able to get the shots you need in the day,
right.
And that's the catch, is you have to do CGI blood. And even with the CGI blood, you can scale it up, you can scale it down. That level of control, it's tempting.
Yeah, there were a couple moments where it was like CG blood stains that were like on clothes, and you could tell.
Oh man, on clothes it feels so unnecessary. Yeah. Like in Rejects, sure. I understand. But like in Rejects, there's the bit with the stab wound where she pulls the knife out of herself, and the blade and the blood is all CG. Like, I get that, but
that all looks pretty good. Yeah, it's more of like the bullet holes.
Ooh, yeah.
Like through clothes or on skin when it's CG, and sometimes it would cut, you know, between shots, it being CG and it being like practical, and you could tell, but it didn't really bother me that much. It's a surprisingly not super gory film, you know, and it like I said, is tonally different. It's more of a romp. It's good though. Check it out for sure.
Cool. What about you, Zach? You see anything interesting you want to give a quick shout out to?
Well, like you, I watched a movie I've owned for years and had never seen because I'm going through all my crap to move. And I watched a Joe Estevez movie called Murder-in-Law.
Oh, I've seen that around. Yeah.
I love me some Joe Estevez.
Oh, as far as Joe Estevez goes, it's a classic. He wears like teal shirts and like pink pants, and it's all super like super what rich people dressed like in the early 90s.
Oh no.
But his mother escapes from a mental institution, manages to travel from New Orleans to San Francisco in like less than 48 hours on foot. They never explain how she gets there, but she literally travels cross country.
Speedy Nan.
Yeah. She's got one lucky hitchhike. But yeah, no, it's hot garbage, but it's pretty fun.
Huh.
Other than that, I saw Midsummer last night, which
Still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
Pretty damn good. I don't have anything insightful to say.
Yeah.
that smarter people than me haven't already said about it probably.
Oh,
But I'd recommend it. I thought it was fun. I think Hereditary has more rewatch value.
Yeah. Yeah. Hereditary was pretty good. I that deserves a rewatch for me for sure. I when something's overhyped and I watch it at the height of the overhype,
Yeah.
I tend to poo all over it, and I shouldn't do that, but it's just how it goes. Have you guys seen the new Creepshow series on Shudder? Sorry, that reminded me.
I haven't gotten around to it yet. I watched a little bit of the first episode because when you open up Shudder, they go straight into the streams, and I caught it just as the house. What is it? What is it?
Yeah, that one's so good. That one's really good.
Yeah,
it's a good
awesome.
series. It's a good series.
Better than Creepshow 3?
Much better than
Okay,
Much
good.
better than yeah, some of the shorts in it are really good. The first episode, because each it's like a 40-minute episode series, and there's 2 episodes, like each about 15 to 20 minutes. And the very first episode is actually a Stephen King short story, Gray Matter, and it's got Adrian Barbeau in it,
Yes.
and whatever his name is, who's Jigsaw, I forget his name all the time.
Tobin Bell.
Tobin Bell, yeah. And that was a good episode too. There's also one, you remember that movie from the early 2000s, The New Guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever that comedian's name is. He's also in Z Nation and stuff.
DJ Qualls.
DJ Qualls, yeah.
Yeah. He does.
I'll just be over here giving you random ass names.
Yeah, seriously.
For the rest of the show.
I can confirm a few of them at least.
He's in an episode too that's really funny where he ends up finding this little monster pet who ends up being his best friend, but starts killing anyone who even vaguely annoys him. It's pretty good. You should check it out. It's worth watching. I can't wait for the next episode to come out.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, they're not doing them all at once. They're doing a weekly release thing.
Yeah, they make you wait. It drives me nuts. But it's good. It's really good.
The other thing also in terms of things we've seen, I guess I should gloat a little bit about making it to the all-night horror movie marathon at the Hollywood Theater last weekend.
Yeah.
So
what did they play?
So first up was The Blob, 1988, which I hadn't seen before. The print was in amazing condition. Chuck Russell does not get enough credit as such a really good director. That dude has done so many good movies. I mean, Nightmare 3 and The Blob 88, The Mask, Eraser. I love Eraser. I think even that was that's one of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies.
Yeah.
That is a great film. And
I forgot that he did The Mask.
Yeah. And let's see. The second one was The Final Terror with Joe Pantoliano.
I love that movie.
And that's a pretty intense film. I mean, it's definitely slow to start, but once it gets going, it's pretty good. The atmosphere is fantastic. And I was really impressed that it seems like it's from Andrew Davis. I mean, who, did The Fugitive and other kind of action thrillers and espionage thrillers later on. So it's really cool to kind of see the kind of humble beginnings, all things in some regard, because there's actually some pretty intense rigging and stunts in the third act. Again, really good quality print. It was great to realize that it was that guy looks like a dude from Walter Hill's Southern Comfort, and looked it up, and sure enough, it was. So that was cool. And then the scary part was then to realize that also was the guy who played Perfect Tommy in Buckaroo Banzai, and I did not recognize that. And it took me a second to realize, oh my God. Yeah, because, just give him blonde hair, and suddenly, oh, there he is. The movie number 3 was... God, why am I forgetting movie number 3 now? It was a really good one too. Yeah, it was The Blob, Final Terror. It was another film I had. Trick or Treat, 1986, with Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne and their little cameos.
Yeah.
And again, that was a practically pristine quality print. I have no idea how they dug that one up from some private collector, but yeah, it definitely drags a bit. But the music select that feels like a truly legit 80s metalhead horror movie. Like the music, the posters, even the kids the kid looks like friends I had, that were totally into those subcultures at that time, or not that time, sorry, but when I was younger. And and then they capped it off with I recorded a clip of Dan's intro where he said, it's like, all right, so we're going to go to Italy. It's going to be a Lucio Fulci movie because it's 3 a.m. And who gives a fuck about plot, like, because we're all tired, we're exhausted. So House by the Cemetery was what they went for there. And so that was a good way to cap the night. And man, it's those zooms, those close-ups of the eyes, people looking at each other.
I love them.
So wild. I finally was able to keep track of what the hell the plot was about this time, or what little plot there is. So, but yeah, it was a good time.
That's
finally cracked Dr. Freudstein's case.
Yeah,
indeed. I finally got it. Yeah. Quick interesting thing though is that the version that often shows on the streaming services of House by the Cemetery often has that harpsichord synth intro theme over the opening credits. Mm-hmm. The print that we saw actually had the orchestral kind of string-based version over those credits, even though it was still the same American dub or English dub and the same title cards. It was very interesting. I'm not sure why that was.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, I'm bummed that I missed it. I was out of town.
Tickets, I think, are still available for Fabio Frizzi in December, by the way.
Right, yeah. I really want to go to that. Is
he playing live to
The Beyond?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. It's kind of like what they did for Goblin, which I also went to earlier this month as well, because that was pretty good. But, yeah. Anyway,
you were just working on a film too, right?
Yes. In terms of new news, I am now in post-production on my latest short, which actually is within the horror genre, partly inspired by, finally watched Under the Shadow over the summer, and that was a big kind of like way of deciding, hey, let's dust off this script and make something. Because I haven't directed my own thing in like 2.5 years since High Score wrapped, so it's been a while. But it's pretty good. Yeah, we had Laura Welsh as the lead. She's amazing, and it's a very subtle, kind of more in the vein of like the art house or kind of J horror sort of vibe. It's more about the atmosphere, but there's definitely some splashes of blood because we had Zach Smith for the effects, and so he had fun.
Oh yeah. He was talking all about it. Yeah, I'm actually it's funny because I've been working with Zach and a bunch of others. I'm really deep into pre-production for something that a script that I've been working on for a long time now. Really want to get into production on that, filming it in February. But it's also very much in the vein of J horror, kind of like a non-linear plot, that kind of flashes back and forth in time. It's a script that I had been working on for a while, and meeting with Zach, he was like, I feel like I was just working on something like this. I was like, oh, God damn it. I didn't know that Chris beat me to it. I didn't know it was like going to be that similar.
Well, I don't do any sort of time jumping or anything, if that makes you feel any better, but it's because it's pretty straightforward. It just, the more of the time jumps are less about linearity and more about like you realize suddenly, oh shit, like it's just moved over like 4 years or it's been 3 months and there's an element of you're meant to be feel not sure about whether she's going nuts or something supernatural is taking place, and so the time jumps are meant to be disorienting for both herself and the audience
mine kind of does that stuff too.
Yeah. The main thing for me was just, it was like a point of like, when you write this stuff and create these movies, like you get to, after a while, you begin to realize like, I just want to get to the good stuff. And so that was kind of one of the points of it. Yeah.
You guys should just put them together, make another anthology.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Mine will just be an unofficial sequel. I'll do the Italian thing, and I'll wait for Chris's official title to come out, and then I'll slap a 2 on it, or the beginning.
God, yeah. Yeah, we'll hopefully I'll have a teaser out. Actually, I was planning to work on a teaser today, and then hopefully get that out sometime early next week.
Awesome.
Which, for reference to anyone trying to figure like what the hell are they talking about? We're recording this on a Thursday. So
yeah. And what's your? Make sure you tell everyone what your YouTube is so they can find it.
That's a good point. Yeah, people should keep a track on Dark Moody Productions on YouTube, and subscribe to our channel. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And we'll have updates coming soon.
Sweet. All right. let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Our Halloween Spooktacular. Yes, I think I'm actually going to call it that.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, Halloween Spooktacular. Why not? Episode
I'm fine with
3.
it.
All right. Zach, you haven't you haven't said too much. Why don't you start?
All right. Well, I'm gonna start it off. Weird, probably then.
Now, what do you watch around the Halloween holiday season? What
I
gets
watch
you in the mood?
Roseanne.
Roseanne.
No joke, Roseanne, so good. No, if I'm really thinking about getting in the mood for Halloween and thinking back nostalgically, it's Halloween episodes of shitty 90s sitcoms.
For sure.
That always feels like Halloween to me.
Do you have a favorite one with Roseanne in regards to Roseanne?
Yeah, it's the first one they did. They didn't do a Halloween episode until the second season. I got excited. I thought there was a Halloween episode I didn't remember in the first season when I was rewatching these, because it's called A Nightmare on whatever fucking street the Connors live on.
Right.
And it starts out with them, they're gathering around to watch an old spook theater sort of thing, and Roseanne's worried that the kids are going to have nightmares, and Darlene, sneaks into her bed at night and says she can't sleep, but it's because she had her period. So the horror movie Halloween elements are out the window in the first 5 minutes, and then it's all just about periods.
Oh.
But the second
That's your
season,
favorite one?
no, the second season they went full on Halloween with a haunted house inside their house. That's great. The DJ intros dressed as a dead ninja, and it's so good. This episode's so good that Fright Rags did a shirt of it a few years back.
Oh, man.
They did like one of those like limited weekend sales or whatever for a Roseanne t-shirt based on all of their costumes. Cause that's the best part of the Halloween episodes is they go all out with the costumes. There's gore, there's guts, there's axes and heads. So good. Very Halloweener.
Is that the episode? Because my favorite one, I mean, I don't know from which season they are. I'm not that big of a Roseanne fan. I wouldn't rule it out.
You wouldn't say you're not a Roseanne head?
No, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I've definitely seen almost all the episodes in my life. But there's the one, like you said, I think they have the haunted house inside of their house, and they end up like pulling off a platter, and it's like Jackie's head underneath. And she's got, I remember being a little kid and not really watching Roseanne, but my grandma watching it and seeing just that clip.
Yeah.
And I remember that actually being scary. I wasn't really sure what the context was, and just thinking that was like a genuinely like frightening image.
The horror elements of the episodes are surprisingly effective. There's a later one where their neighbor comes in and Dan is gutted on the table and he's got entrails spilling out. There's good stuff. There's an episode where Darlene has a chest burster thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's good stuff, man. I'm telling you guys, go back, watch Roseanne. Forget about modern Roseanne. Go watch old Roseanne.
Don't. Yeah. Not Ambien Roseanne.
Yeah, please don't take this as an endorsement of Roseanne Barr the person. I'm sure she sucks, but the original sitcom is great.
So, all right, I'll share this story, and I don't know, you guys might think differently of me later, but I don't. You know what? I don't care.
Cards on the table.
My senior year of high school. And this has nothing to do with Halloween. Actually, it was the day before Halloween. Oh, hey, kitty. My senior year of high school, I'd started acting. I was doing some like stuff in Portland, some bigger like films. I had a much better acting career when I was like young. But anyway, thought I was really cool, and I ended up taking acid with a friend of mine, because I was kind of deep in this Jim Morrison phase. and I decided to do acid the day before Halloween, and we watched probably 14 hours straight of Roseanne because it was like pretty intense, and we needed something that wasn't intense to like focus on, and we ended up watching like almost the entire series of Roseanne. So, every now and then, like a close friend of mine will know that I, I'll tell them that I took acid, and they're like, "Oh, what was it like?" And I was like, "I don't know. I got kind of freaked out and watched Roseanne."
Yeah.
I watched Roseanne.
Every once in a while, you crack your back and you get a Roseanne flashback.
Yeah, I get a for real Roseanne flashback.
But that makes hearing John Goodman's voice kind of interesting.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys watched the new Roseanne?
I have, yeah.
I haven't seen any of it. I haven't seen the new ones. Does it capture anything pleasant?
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay, nice.
My girlfriend Natalie really likes Roseanne.
Mm-hmm.
Even with when the whole tweet thing happened, her whole response was mostly, "Oh shit, they're gonna cancel Roseanne, huh?"
Yeah.
Immediately she's like, "Oh fuck."
That's what everyone else in the cast probably thought too.
Yeah, yeah.
Poor guy who plays DJ was like, "Oh fuck, I finally got a job."
Right.
All these years later.
And yeah, it was okay. It was all right. And then they tried to keep it going with the Connors, and that was just not good. I mean, Roseanne is not Roseanne without Roseanne, so.
Yeah. Well, good. I'll watch. I'll get around to that eventually. Once I rewatch the first 9 seasons. I'll probably skip the 9th season.
So do you have a movie? You have like a horror movie that you like to watch around this time? You don't have a tradition?
No, I really don't. Recently, I've been doing been hanging out with kids more often. So like Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus.
Oh, yeah.
Or always gonna pop on for the kids. But to be honest, I don't know. I'm not that ritualistic.
Oh,
I guess.
Oh, that saddens me.
Just Roseanne. Or if there's a Halloween episode of Step by Step, yeah, I'm all about it.
No, I like TV show Halloween stuff. I mean, of course, Treehouse of Horror.
Treehouse of Horror is the fucking best. Yeah, and
sure.
I've been a big fan of the Bob's Burgers Halloween episodes. It's been really,
the Bob's Burgers ones are good.
There was a really good Race with the Devil reference in one of them that just made me so happy.
Yeah, The Simpsons is always really clever. Treehouse of Horror is always really clever. I mean, from the first one, they were doing Twilight Zone references and Amityville Horror and The Raven, and they always do a really good job with those. I always like those. I also like a Rugrats one because that was me when I was a kid. I
don't think I've ever seen a Rugrats Halloween episode.
There was a couple of good ones. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a good one, especially the Reptar bar that changes your tongue green. It's a good one. Yeah. Early 90s, man. That was, that was my day, so.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
Cool. So
someone talk about an actual horror movie.
Cool. Well, I was well, thankfully. So not being a Roser Anner,
Roseanne head.
A Roseanne head.
Yeah.
There's a Grateful Dead. There's Grateful Dead tie-ins even.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
In one of the Halloween episodes, she speaks to the ghost of Jerry Garcia, and it's dedicated to Jerry Garcia because he had died recently, and it makes no sense. They really degrade over time. I'll say that. There's diminishing results with Roseanne as a whole.
So sad to say, if I have come to the conclusion this year that the Grateful Dead just doesn't work for me. I'm not sure if Roseanne is ever going to work for me either in that case.
Yeah. I don't know. Try dropping acid and watching Roseanne.
I don't know. I'll take that into consideration.
You might grow closer to it.
Well,
if you were 18.
It would certainly be better than the choice I have for kind of a Halloween movie that's kind of ritualistic and getting into the spirit of things. Is this kind of started as sort of how sometimes where rituals and traditions don't really mean to begin, they just kind of start to happen. for a few years, my best bro, as I call him, because I have a lot of friends I consider best friends. But my best bro, Phil, we had this tendency of like there would be like no plans and like things would fall through for us doing anything on Halloween. So we'd just come over and we'd always watch, horror movies. And we kept coming back to this one movie that is just like it's a great piece of American fantasy horror, nightmarish. It's a film that's got shotguns, sinful sensuality, and silver spheres. Because of course you got to go with Phantasm. Because you've got a boogeyman, you've got a mortuary, you've got blood, you've got monsters, you've got little fucking Jawas, you've got car chases, and you've got that fantastic ending, that just like is really spooky, and especially if like you're like a little too tired, you've had way too much candy. It is one of my absolute. I mean, I talked a lot about this on the big favorite horror films per genre thing as well. So I won't repeat too much of it. But yeah, it's just a film that like the music and the look of it, and like even just like seeing Reggie and in the ice cream suit and the truck and the tall man and just all the imagery of it always brings me back to that spooky flavor, because I remember watching, I think for the first time when I was about I think it was about 12 when I saw it for the first time. It was one of those like saw parts of it on TNT and then it like showed up on like one of the premium movie channels, uncut, and it was like, whoa, and so it it's been a great one, and I love the whole series. I mean, it's not like I just prefer the first one and consider the other ones to be non-canon. I mean, even James LeGros gets a lot of shit for Phantasm 2, and I thought he was actually pretty good. But yeah, Phantasm's. Yeah. But what I like about Phantasm, I think, to me, is just that there's something reliable about the movie that never really like if it's one of those great, you can go to it once a year and it never really loses much over time. And so yeah, it's not like it's been continuous like every single year, but it's definitely one that I come back to a lot. And I'm going to be happily watching the Blu-ray now of the 4K remaster, which is gorgeous, and settling in for some of that good stuff. I mean, I've got my honorable mentions, other films. I mean, like I love watching Creepshow or Demons, and nowadays, my buddy Phil really likes watching Night of the Comet every Halloween, and it's like the last like 3 years or so he's done that one, and those are really good choices as well. But yeah, what's kind of interesting I find about Halloween and Halloween traditions, as much as I talk about like the ritual and all that sort of stuff, I think it is kind of cool that if we start young and as we get older, it shifts and it changes. And sometimes like we have that one Halloween that we get into a certain subgenre, you get into a certain director and stuff like that, if we're really passionate about it. And that's always been something cool about it. But I will say, like, I think the first time like seeing Phantasm, like in an October of like, this would have been 98 or 99. And yeah, it would have been 98 because it was before we moved to, my parents and I moved to a house when I was about 12. And I remember around the time we moved, my dad and I watched a bunch of the Phantasm sequels, and I got like nightmares and was freaked out because it was an old 70s style house. And so it felt like one of those, like a location out of that movie. But yeah, and it's, so I don't know if it's a good choice, a bad choice, but it's just, it's one that I passionately feel about. And I mean, come on, you know me, I'm an action movie guy. So if it's got, guns and chases and a little more edge to it, that's going to be my choice.
That is good, because Phantasm, I don't even recall what time of year it takes place, but it feels very much like a Halloween movie.
Yeah, definitely.
For whatever reason.
It's got all of the elements that you would want out of a Halloween movie for sure. Yeah, I mean, they just kind of like creepy imagery, kind of nightmarish. That's a very like very nightmarish film. Mm-hmm. It's been a little while since I've seen it, actually. Need to revisit.
Yeah, and I love like it's got that stark night photography where it's like it's cheap. I mean, they made the movie for like less than $1 million, and so you got like a couple of 1K, 2K lights to just splat around the scenery, and just hope your film stock holds up. And so yeah, and that's what I like also about it, is that there's a sense that night has its creepiness. Like, it's a town that in the day there's that mood, that foreboding, of the tall man walking down. I mean, that scene of the tall man going down the street and then, recoiling at the ice cream truck, the music and the slow motion. It's just, it's so fucking good. And then you get to, when night falls, like really like anything can come out of those shadows. You don't know if it's going to be one of the little goblins, or if it's going to be, the seductive woman that actually is the tall man in disguise. I mean, there's so many reasons to kind of go in and revisit that. And explore it. And I love how that ending, like that ending, just like kind of layer upon layer of like that, like the logic and the time movement and the voiceover, and the Dune references, and oh god, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's a good choice. That's a really good choice. Yeah, I ought to watch that with it being Halloween. Yeah, I ought to revisit that. I actually really liked the second one too. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but I remember liking it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it on Monster Madness, right? Joe Bob posted it. Yeah, yeah.
The thing with the second one that I think is kind of interesting is that what we remember of Phantasm, the 4-barrel shotgun and the kind of the gear, the flamethrower stuff, the Dream Girl, a lot of that stuff kind of gets conflated with the first film sometimes for some people. So some people I think don't realize they're really talking about two separate films sometimes, because there's definitely that element. And it was a bummer. My understanding was that Coscarelli wanted to bring Michael back because he was by that time was an adult. And he wanted to bring Michael Baldwin back to play Mike, and they said, well, this LaGrosse guy is our new Studley man hero, and I like James LaGrosse. And I think all things considered, if it had to be a kind of more conventional star, it would have worked with him. But it was great when they brought Mike back for the two sequels. I haven't seen 5. Was it Ravager? I haven't seen that one yet because I don't know I know Reggie's back in it, but I don't know if Michael's back.
I've not seen it either.
Yeah, I've only seen up to 4. Oblivion, right?
Oblivion.
Oblivion? Yeah.
Yeah, 5 just came out a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's not a series that I've kept up with very much, and it definitely should be. It's kind of like I know that, this series probably shouldn't be mentioned anywhere near the Phantasm series, but also like the Puppet Master series, right? It's like, I haven't kept up with it, but I hear the new one is good, and I still need to see it.
Yeah, Barbara Crampton's in one of them, isn't she? Like one of the recent ones? That's what I remember.
Probably The Littlest Reich, because that one wasn't made by Full Moon.
Right. And that one is supposed to be pretty good from what I hear.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's on Shudder. I could watch it right now, but
yeah, or you could just watch Puppet Master 3 again.
Right.
That one's so good.
Is that the one with the Nazis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, man.
Or you can watch Evil Bong 420.
Is that one that you've worked on?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first one's all right, man.
The first Evil Bong, it's not the worst.
I have not seen any of the sequels to Evil Bong, but since you were in 420, I will watch it.
I'm not in it.
No, well, you worked on it.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. It's all right.
I'm always super happy every time I get a Severin release and your name is in the credits. I always laugh. And I'm like, look, it's Zach. My girlfriend rolls her eyes. She's like, all right, cool.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, man.
You gotta check out Boys Next Door. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. No.
Coming up release. It's pretty tight.
I know. I saw the new releases. There's a bunch of kind of like softcore comedy films that you guys are.
Yeah, Gwendolyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know nothing about those films.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Boys Next Door is legit pretty great spree killer movie though.
God, I love those spree killer movies.
Yeah.
Caveman Day.
Yeah.
That's the premise of the movie, basically. They have Caveman Day where they just do whatever they want and just involves murdering lots of people.
So it's kind of like a precursor to The Purge kind of a thing.
A little bit, yeah, but a lot less intentional.
Yeah, the premise of that almost reminds me. I haven't seen the film, but it reminds me of what I've heard of the premise of was it Bloody Birthday, where there's kind of a lot of mayhem going on, and it's kind of just decide, okay, we're gonna do what we want. Actually, I had somebody pitching something like that to me at a networking event at the Portland Film Festival the other night. That was interesting to have someone come up to me and just be like, all right, it's like, okay, so there's all these annoying people in the world. I'm like, yeah. It's like, what if you just did a story where we kill them?
What if we just killed people?
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason.
That reminds me of that Bobcat Goldthwait movie.
Yeah, God Bless America.
Oh,
Yeah. Which is that's definitely what I felt when I was watching that. I was like, oh, this is just Bobcat Goldthwait venting.
Mhm.
Coming off like an angry old man.
Yep. Fun movie though. It was enjoyable.
And I don't know if anybody ever finds themselves getting that upset about American Idol, should just turn their fucking TV off.
right.
Yep. Just cut the cord, man. Just cut the cord and it goes away. You don't have to deal with it. So anyway, but back on track to what we're saying, the spooktacularness. Calvin, what is? I remember you saying that it was like a series of some sort. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I've got kind of a weird tradition, and every year for the past 6 years now, like clockwork, like Natalie knows it's coming, so she's always like, as soon as she sees that there are boxes of Boo Berry, Count Chocula, and Frankenberry, she knows that it's fucking coming. I will find a day, sometimes two. I've already done it once this October, and I'm getting the hankering to do it again. I've done this ever since I was probably 16. I buy a box of Frankenberry, and I watch all the Hammer Frankenstein movies, and I eat an entire box of Frankenberry. I don't know why I do it. I've just always done it. And like the great thing about the Hammer Frankenstein series is, at least in my opinion, I know that like I don't usually go with popular opinion. People usually don't agree with me. But the Hammer Frankenstein series, if you guys are familiar with it at all,
yes.
They're better towards the middle. Like
Mhm.
the sequels are the best. You know what I mean? Like the first one is the one to me that I always kind of find myself just trying to get through. Just, I don't know, being like a late 50s, and it's like maybe taking itself kind of seriously. But, you know, that one's a little boring, but man, especially once you get to Frankenstein Created Woman, which I think is like the second best in that series. It's like off and running.
Yeah,
Man, it's such a good series.
and
I'm more interested in the cereal component. Do you get like one giant bowl? Do you use like a mixing bowl, or do you have multiple bowls while you watch
multiple bowls. Like,
Okay.
yeah. Like,
Yeah, well-
I mean, it's not like a requirement to eat the whole box, but like sometimes it happens. Like there's a Saturday and it's like, I just won't eat anything else. And Natalie literally like will either go out or she'll stay in the room and watch something, or, you know, she doesn't even come out. She doesn't, you know, like she'll watch a lot of my movies, but she's not doesn't like period pieces, which sucks because I love period.
Oh man,
pieces. I know.
Yeah, because the Hammer movies are so good at it too.
I know.
And the Frankenstein movies are some of the best at it. They capture the intensity of that time that history and literature from the period captures. A lot of the movies of that period and movies today don't.
Right. And I mean, it just has, especially for October, for like Halloween time, you know, I don't think of Halloween necessarily being like actually scary or bloody or gory. I think of just traditional spooky things that, you know, aren't scary, have never really been scary, like black cats and bats and castles with fog. Like that's I refuse to believe that was ever scary to anybody.
Right.
Like, I know that, like, history says, no, man, people were actually afraid of that. But no. I just refuse to believe that in the 30s, people found Frankenstein scary. It's a great movie, but, you know, for me, it's just, like, it encapsulates, you know, like, kind of the childlike aspects of Halloween to me, you know?
Absolutely. But I will say, I have a bit of a story, a bit of tangent, talking about fog and darkness and the spookiness of the time, you know, not being really truly scary. So my first job when I was kind of in my late teens was I did door-to-door sales for Verizon Fiber, you know, the cable and internet service. And so this is where you're doing door-to-door cold calls stuff. And I was in this spot in Beaverton, kind of near Walker and Walker and Murray. It's kind of near there. And so, I mean, Calvin, you're from that region. You know how it's like. It's just houses. Like it's very much just houses and developments. There's this one patch. I don't even know if it's still there, called Pioneer Drive, and that's the turf that I've been given to go knock doors on. And it's starting to get dark. This is like in February or something like that. And it turns out it's like this little patch of rural, like these are houses that are on 2 or 3 acres worth of property. And it's just like 4 or 5 houses like that in a row. Now there's developments on the other side, but the creepy thing is, as night falls, most of those houses don't have the lights on. There's either no cars in there or there's no signs of life. So I've got like pitch black on one side, the sort of twilight on one side. And as I'm walking down this, there's like just a ditch. There's no sidewalk. You're just walking on like gravel that's on the side of the road. And it was pretty creepy. And this is like 2008 or something like that. So, this is where, actually it was in my early 20s then. But yeah, it's like there's that interesting sort of like, like the mist and the quiet and like that sort of that animal feeling of like, because you couldn't even hear 26. This is actually relatively close to Highway 26, so like a freeway, and you couldn't hear it. And like that, those shadows, I wouldn't underestimate that is.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've actually never been, around like a foggy castle at night. I'm sure I would be terrified.
Right, but
I'm talking big game over here in the suburbs.
Right, that's kind of wondering. But anyway, though. But back to the Hammer movie thing. First of all, I think that is awesome. That is like one of the coolest traditions you could have. When it comes to me for, even though I may have like my go-to movie, my actual like Halloween tradition is to just marathon a bunch of movies, and I'll just dig stuff out of my collection, stuff that I've never seen before, all that kind of stuff. I love introducing my friends to stuff, and doing the breakfast cereal with any of the franchises within the Hammer movie universe. That is just perfection. Kudos and hats off to you, sir. I feel like an asshole now for going so. Like I feel like I fired way too limply. You've got the big explosion of coolness there. I don't even really know where it started. I think it's definitely when I started getting into film, and I have a hard time articulating this. So excuse me, it might not come off right, but like I feel, especially as a filmmaker, and maybe you guys can tell me if you agree or not, but I feel like some weird, like some strange connection to the Dr. Frankenstein character as like a filmmaker, because like we don't even really know why he's driven to do this. Like he knows he's just obsessed with his work, and he never has any success. It's definitely not for money, because he's not even like wanting to like publish notes or anything. He's just like obsessed with proving that he can do this, and it's like hazardous to his health. He never has any actual success, high mortality rate. Like there's no reason that he should be like wasting his life or his skills, his like, he's even got like this brilliant like drive in him, and he could like go be a brilliant scientist or doctor elsewhere, but he's just for whatever reason focused on something that even colleagues are they're mostly just like, why are you doing this? He doesn't even have a reason. He's just like sits in his lab. I just sometimes feel like connected to Dr. Frankenstein. So he's like one of my favorite villains for that reason. I like that describes why I think I identify with like Mark Borchardt from American Movie. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why are you doing this? But it's like it kind of warms your heart. So I'm always rooting for Dr. Frankenstein. Like I feel like I understand him,
So that's kind of cool. It's like, some filmmakers, look at like Ed Wood, the film Ed Wood, Tim Burton's Ed Wood, and say like, yeah, I'd relate to that. And you actually like, you said, no, it's the character of this character. And and Cushing is just so, I honestly have always felt that as soon as I saw one of the Hammer Frankenstein movies, I think it might have been Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed was my first one.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorites. That's probably my second favorite. Yeah.
And it's like pretty much it's like they're clearly better than most of the other Hammer movies that were done, especially during the 60s. I love Plague of the Zombies and The Gorgon and stuff like that, and Hound of the Baskervilles. But my God, like those, the characters, the writing, the directing is just really, there's something so visceral. And that's also kind of, I think, why it's also as a creator, I agree. Like there's that sense of like we abhor what he's doing, but we also understand that like no one cares about it but me.
Right.
You know,
I understand
sort of
his obsession with just wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I feel like I get a lot of that shit from, you know, like especially like distant family members who are like, why are you trying to make these movies? And it's like, oh, I don't know. I'm just obsessed with it now, you know. And Dr. Frankenstein, like especially as the series goes on, and that's the best thing is like each movie he like kind of just like tweaks what it is that he's like trying to prove or trying to accomplish, which is great. You know, the first one, it's just typical Frankenstein. You know, he's like, I just want to make a human, you know, and puts dead body parts together. Then you get Revenge of Frankenstein, and he's like, okay, fuck that. Let's see if we can like transfer brains and like have it still be the same person, which still doesn't work out. It works out horribly. And the brain that he transfers, like that person, he does it with a monkey too. And anytime you transfer the brain, sometimes they have like a thirst for blood, which is strange. That's kind of a strange little side effect. And then you got Evil of Frankenstein, which is interesting because it shows Dr. Frankenstein like blowing all of his money on a project, which feels very relatable to filmmakers, right? He blows all of his money on this bullshit project, and then he has to like return back to his hometown so that he can like sell stuff, and he like stumbles across an old monster that he made and is like, oh, we might as well revive it. Let's see if, since he's been on ice for a few years, let's see if he comes back to life, which is cool. And then Frankenstein created woman. All of a sudden, his whole thing is just like the soul. He's like, fuck reviving dead bodies. I want to see if I can transfer the soul. So he like transfers the soul of a wrongfully killed man into like the wrongfully killed man's girlfriend, and she goes on a rampage. And I mean, just as it goes on, it just gets better and better. And then, yeah, you've got Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, which is like one of my favorites, where he like realizes that he needs help. And he's like, oh, I used to have this old partner who is a genius, but he's gone insane. I wonder if I could cure insanity. So it's like the whole movie is just him trying to cure insanity, like through operations. And like they're not typical like what you would think of with a Frankenstein movie. It's not necessarily just like bringing a monster back to life that kills people. And it's kind of my favorite thing about that series is, you know, they're very anthology like, with just the running theme of Dr. Frankenstein having these ridiculous ideas or ridiculous problems that he needs to overcome. And, you know, he always ends up screwing them up. But my favorite of the entire series, oddly, is the one that doesn't have Peter Cushing in it. My favorite one is Horror of Frankenstein with Ralph Bates, who's young Frankenstein. It's like, you know, a prequel to the first one, and it's really good. I think that was the first one I saw as a teenager, and there was something cool. Like Ralph Bates is also young, and like he ends up killing his dad so he can inherit his castle and all of his money, and he keeps around his super hot maid that the dad hired. And like, I know it's like not PC at all, but you know, it's like a 15-year-old, you're like, oh, that's so cool. I wish that was my life. You know, I wish I owned a castle with hot maids, and you know, he just like is making a monster up in his attic. The whole series is just great. Like,
so much fun.
There's not a bad movie in there. There really isn't.
Yeah, whereas Dracula has scars of Dracula, and
right.
Oh God.
And some of the Draculas kind of drag a little bit and maybe take themselves a little too seriously at times.
Yep, like Dracula's Risen from the Grave, I've watched parts of, and that one's a little hard to stick with. It's gorgeous, still pretty to look at, but yeah. And honestly, I mean, my favorite in that series may also be one that's from the middle too, which is Taste of Blood?
Yeah, Taste the Blood of Dracula is probably my favorite one because it kind of has like this slasher element to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a little more fast paced.
Yep.
So, yeah. And 72 AD, that's a funny one too.
That's fun. Yeah, it's so goofball.
The disco, it's like
Yeah, it's very mod. It's the swinging 60s. Swinging London.
yeah.
Because it's during that kind of that late era mod period. Same era as like Psychomania.
And British people are already kind of dorky, but disco British people, oh god. Oh man. But yeah, Hammer just oozes October for me.
It always, yeah, absolutely. I think that's one reason why I love Hammer as a what it represents aesthetically, and I felt it was a bummer that when they kind of revived themselves a bit, that they were trying to do these new horror films, and like what was it, The Woman in Black? That was the one with Dan Radcliffe. It's close, but it's just a little too sluggish and slow to like work, but it does at least capture the aesthetic of what you like. It's got the spooky house, it's got the atmosphere. The sound design was a little weak. I mean, it was like but yeah, it's like there's something special about that old Hammer that I really would love to see kind of someone be able to kind of capture and bring back to today, and be able to modernize. Even though it was more, I think, kind of traditional Gothic, even Crimson Peak at least had elements of it, at least.
Yeah.
That first act especially was really spot on. So
aside from The Woman in Black, have they done any more modern Hammers?
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention.
There was the Quiet Ones. Yep.
And it wasn't very good.
Yeah, that was their. Yeah, the Quiet Ones was kind of their take on Legend of Hell House, I think, wasn't it? With this experiment at the house.
Yeah, it was found footage style.
Ugh.
Yeah.
God. And then they also did. I think I can't remember if they were involved. I think their name was on the Let the Right One In remake. Let Me In, I think was on. Their name might have been on that.
Oh, was it?
They may have done like foreign distribution or something for it. And I think that film with Hilary Swank and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, The Resident, I believe might have been theirs as well.
Oh. Yeah, they're around.
Yeah,
interesting.
My understanding is there's a new film they've got coming. I think it's called The Lodge or The Lodger or something like that. And all I've been told is do not watch any of the trailers. Just as soon as it comes out, see it blind. And so I'm like, okay,
yeah.
If I know it's coming, I'll go see it.
I feel like that's just good practice these days.
Oh,
yeah.
God. Especially with these Netflix trailers, like spoiling the whole damn movie in 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, if I want to actually see something, I do my best.
Yeah.
To avoid trailers or reviews or anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to be tainted.
So I guess since we've kind of covered, sort of these things, are there any honorable mentions of like any other, or like what are stuff that you've watched around Halloween or stuff that like, we can sort of kind of pull out like other names, other recommendations, things like that kind of get us around? Because like I've got a few. I've got like a handful. I'm just kind of curious if there's other stuff that you think to yourself, because we've talked about the definitives about what it is that, really gets us, into that mindset, and that's our nostalgia and, hits the right, sort of texture. But what's the other stuff? What are the exploration? Like, did you have one year where you went through a bunch of Bava movies? Did you have like the year of discovering Universal Horror as a kid? Like what are the others out there?
Mine is definitely Universal Horror. I mean, that's another one that I never fail to watch at least a few of those every October as well. Like I said, I like the kind of traditional Halloween imagery. So definitely my two go-tos for Universal Horror are always The Wolfman, which I think is, at least in my opinion, it's the best. It's my favorite.
Pretty damn good.
And following pretty close behind that is Bride of Frankenstein. So, I mean, those are always go-tos. I love, oh God, now I can't even remember his name. The actor who plays Dr. Pretorius in Bride of Frankenstein, he's fantastic in that role. That is like one of the coolest villains in a Universal Horror film. So, yeah, definitely Bride of Frankenstein.
Nice.
I'm a big Frankenstein fan.
Well, if I run out of Roseanne's to watch, I might pull out like Freddy's Dead for the Roseanne Tom Arnold cameo just to get a little more Roseanne.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So
Nice.
that's probably my go-to.
You really go full Roseanne, huh?
I do. Some people say you should never go full Roseanne,
You got to
but
make
I say
it,
go full Roseanne. Yeah.
Gonna make it a tradition to now take an Ambien and watch Roseanne.
That actually sounds like a lovely time.
Yeah, just I mean, I'm pretty sure that the world can trust you not to say anything
Yeah.
full or hurtful.
But that it's a joke, obviously. But that carnival scene in Freddy's Dead, that gives me Halloween vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm amazed that we've gone this entire time not talking about any John Carpenter movies, not The Fog, not Halloween itself, not even his written and co-produced Halloween 3, which feels like a definitive Halloween movie.
Yeah, you'd think it's not for me. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I watched those films, but oddly enough, not really around Halloween. I don't generally watch Halloween around Halloween. I don't know why.
Well, they never seem to release them that often around Halloween these days, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Season of the Witch. Yeah, for sure. That should be.
Yeah.
I was walking home because when I go work out, I like to walk home down a dark path in the evening, and I had my headphones on. I was listening to the Halloween 3 soundtrack while I was doing that walk. Night's falling. It's a good time. That's a recommended October thing to do. Let's take a nice long night walk and have your headphones on and play some John Carpenter music.
I do love a nice night walk.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I definitely am never aware of my surroundings. Always with the headphones.
Yeah.
But if you can't see Halloween 3, you could always do the Haunted Mask episode of Goosebumps.
Oh
hey,
yeah.
there you go.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Tales from the Crypt is another one that kind of around this time kind of has some Halloween vibes to it too. Mostly like that intro and everything. I watch a lot of Tales from the Crypt though. That's kind of a go-to for me. Especially like when people come over, like if I'm hosting, I always have something playing in the background. And generally I'll put on like a season of Tales from the Crypt. That's always kind of a good, like, if I was going to throw a Halloween party, that's what I would have playing in the background.
Have you ever seen that the old HBO show, The Hitchhiker?
Oh, no. I heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's another anthology. I think it was one of, if not the first HBO series. And it's fairly middling, but it's good, background fodder as far as little, middle ground horror anthology shows go.
The Hitchhiker. I love anthologies, so I need to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just found it on the IMDb's here. Yeah. That was with Paige Fletcher. Was that the one? Oh,
I don't know. Is he the Hitchhiker?
Yeah, The Hitchhiker itself. A series of mystery thriller stories linked only by the character of the Hitchhiker, who would introduce and close each episode in the style of Rod Serling and Alfred Hitchcock. Occasional stories involved supernatural forces, but most plot twists stemmed only from the dark side of the human spirit. Thank you, Jean-Marc Rocher. Yeah, it ran from 83 to 91. 6 seasons.
Wow.
Wow, and I've never heard of it.
And here it was all these years.
I got the first 2. I've never seen. I can't recommend past season 2. But it's probably pretty all right.
It's kind of like that show One Step Beyond. It took me a while to find that one. Have you guys seen that? It's like it came before the Twilight Zone, and you realize just how much the Twilight Zone ripped off from.
No, I don't think I've ever watched it.
It's in the public domain, man. Check it out.
Yeah, I see a bunch of episodes on the YouTubes here.
Yep.
And it is on Amazon Prime and Tubi.
Yep. They ripped that off. I remember finding like a Mill Creek release, and it was like the best 50 episodes or whatever, for like $5. And I ended up buying it, not really knowing what it was at all. And yeah, it's pretty great. A lot of those, though, they're like based on true events. and they're not anywhere near as like supernatural or sci-fi as the Twilight Zone or Outer Limits or something like that. But there's definitely some good episodes in there that are kind of spooky, but a lot of them are, strange happenstances that supposedly actually happened. And I mean, it's got a narrator that's Rod Serling. I mean, he comes out with his suit and tie, smoking a cigarette. I mean, it's the Twilight Zone. They're like lost Twilight Zone episodes. They're pretty good.
Wow. And okay, so it even includes guest stars such as John Beale, Warren Beatty, Christopher Lee, Cloris Leachman, Robert Loggia, Donald Pleasance, Parnell Roberts, trying to find some others, Patrick McNee, Charles Bronson, Veronica Cartwright, probably giving another good scream or two or three or five. And wow, they even had Yvette Mimieux.
Yeah, the Warren Beatty episode is actually one of my favorites. I did Warren Beatty's character's monologue for an audition like a long time ago because he's got a really, really good monologue in it. Yeah, it's an interesting episode where like this older couple is like on the rocks and they're like at a weekend kind of getaway house and they have a big fight and the husband leaves and there's a snowstorm and then like a young man, Warren Beatty, shows up and it actually looks exactly like the man when he was younger. And he's like talking to the wife and talks about, how him and his wife are starting to have problems because his wife had a miscarriage. And that's exactly what happened between the older couple way back in the day. So it's almost like she's meeting her husband way, way, way back. And he starts telling her like, my wife right now thinks that I don't care, but, I'm really like depressed from all of this. And it like ends up fixing her marriage by meeting this younger guy who's kind of going through the same thing. It's a really good episode, actually. And it would work perfectly like on the stage. There's a reason that I did it as an audition piece because it just takes place like in one cabin that's been snowed in. It's a really good one. It's a really good episode.
Nice.
And Warren Beatty, he was sexiest man alive. And boy, in that episode, let me tell you, he was a hunk of a man in the 1950s. That's for sure.
Man. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm trying to think, is there any other topics to cover, any other things? I mean, I know that in my head, I'm realizing I'm probably going to end up just watching a bunch of movies at home instead of going out and doing anything on Halloween nights. I need to figure out what my playlist is going to look like. And because I don't have anywhere near anything, I guess, as cool of a tradition to do and I don't want to steal traditions with breakfast cereal and Frankenstein movies.
Oh, you should do it. You should do it for sure.
I should do it. But, I guess that's what it comes back to is there's one key problem, though, that I think happens with us horror guys is that we're watching this stuff all the time anyway. And we're inundated, so it's like, what did we do that's special for Halloween? So I think that's why, there's no Carpenter, there's no Romero. It's just because that's already in my DNA as it is. Like, it,
right.
I need to branch out somehow. It's like Halloween is the time when I like to bust out like Zerum or Biozombie or Black Sabbath, or Suspiria. Because I mean, Suspiria is not one of those DNA movies for me for some reason, but I just find the little oddities. Like Legend of Dinosaur and Monster Bird. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I just tend to gravitate toward anything spooky. House on Haunted Hill, the original one, is another one that I typically watch around this time of year. Vincent Price in a creepy haunted house. I mean, it's just so Halloween.
Yeah.
There's just something about that. Yeah, and Halloween is actually my anniversary. So we always end up doing something. We did something last weekend, so we have Halloween off. We sometimes our friends have like Halloween parties, but more often than not, we like to just stay home and watch scary movies and hand out candy when kids come. Kids are coming less and less. It's kind of sad.
It is. There's more kids in our neighborhood these days, just because more people have there's been one of those shifts, passing of the guard or passing the torch or whatever. But yeah, it definitely doesn't, because I remember like it used to be like even just like 5 years ago, like you would be out of candy before the end of the night.
Right.
It's like within like an hour and a half, you're like, do I need to go to Walmart, do another run? But it seems like it's changed. So I guess that raises one other question though, which is, what are your guys's? So it sounds like you've kind of got your sort of plans. Zach, what about yourself? Do you have any Halloween plans? Do you have any parties you've been invited to that you're either going to ignore or go into and decide to scare everybody?
No, I'm just gonna go trick or treating with my niece, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good.
Yeah,
That sounds fun.
she still likes trick or treating, and my mom's neighborhood is actually pretty good for it. It's a very condensed neighborhood, and quite a few people actually go in for Halloween still.
Yeah, I miss it. I miss trick or treating. I was never even. I don't even have that big of a sweet tooth. I never really did. There was just something kind of like it was like a competition almost.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like going to a theme park, which I also really love going to theme parks and riding rides. And even if I don't like the rides, there's kind of like this mission to ride them all and make sure you're like efficient. And it was kind of the same way with trick or treating. It was like I need a pillowcase so I can get as much candy as possible, and I need to be quick and hit a bunch of houses. Yeah.
So you had the bona fide costume quest experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm probably I've been invited to 2 different parties, one of which I've come to the realization is going to be like full of very normal people, because like the question was raised that what music should be played from the with the DJ, and then and my and seeing everybody's answers being like every like pop song, and like there's nothing spooky related to any of that music, and just realizing okay, I guess we're not gonna put super sexy swinging sounds on there. Okay, we're gonna not have any Alice Cooper. Okay, all right. But then there's so that's always the problem I notice. Yeah, it's another, I think the issue being the horror person is that you have to know enough horror people to invite you to the cool shit, or you have to be the one to create the cool shit, or you just go and be the weirdo.
Right.
But, I don't know. That's been my whole year, is embracing that I'm fucking weird and saying, all right, fuck off.
That's why I stay in.
Yeah. In Portland, you can go to the Lovecraft.
Right. Oh yeah.
Right. That's kind of, I assume they do Halloween pretty big there.
I would hope so.
I mean, as big as they can. It's a pretty small bar.
Yeah. It's tiny. Yeah. I remember filming Daniel Smith's band there once, or the band he was in a long time back, and yeah, it's the smallest venue I've ever shot a band in, ever.
Yeah, seriously. Well, yeah, guys, I think that about does it for our super short Spooktacular. We definitely got to do our movies that Bob ruined episode soon. But,
and we'll have a scale of like 0 to 10. How much did he ruin it?
Yeah, and mostly just reviewing the film. Yeah, just kind of talking about the film and our experiences with the film. And
I can't even blame Bob for Manhattan Baby. I don't think that one was his fault.
we gotta wait for all of that. But I'm hoping that we all have differing opinions on those movies. And
you want that heated crossfire debate.
I want that heated crossfire debate. And the good thing about Fulci is like you were saying about House by the Cemetery, that you finally get it. It's something that he's got no real point arrived at in his movies, so you interpret it yourself, which is my favorite aspect of Fulci. It's why I love Fulci films so much. So all of us kind of talking about what the fuck we think it all means, or what actually happened, could be interesting. So yeah, I'm excited for that episode.
Sounds
Should
good.
Be fun. We'll reconvene after Halloween.
Yes, sir. You guys have a happy Halloween. Be safe.
All right. Happy Halloweener, guys.
Happy Halloween.